Hi, I'm Teresa from Phoenix Gate Crafts, and today we're talking about one category of stitchwear that I plan to never make, and the reasons behind that. And this isn't to say that others can't make it, it's just something I've decided is not for me. And I also allow that you should never say never. And things I've said I'll never do, like learning how to knit, I did wind up learning how to knit. So you never know what the future may bring or might necessitate. But these are a category, maybe technically two categories, that they just don't make sense to me, like on a foundational level. So the things that I will never make are underwear and bathing suits. Let's talk the gross stuff first, underwear. Now, when I say underwear, I'm talking about bras and panties. I'm not talking about like long johns or winter underwear. Typically in the modern day, you still wear a pair of underpants underneath your long johns just because, one, an extra layer of clothing, and two, the main reason I will never do underpants, sanitary purposes. People leak is ultimately what it comes down to, and the whole reason of having underwear is to have a thin layer of protection for the rest of your clothes. You can wear your pants, depending on the pants, 2 to 7 million times before washing, depending on what you do, of course, and how physically dirty you get. But you typically don't need to wash like a pair of jeans every day or a pair of black slacks every day because you're wearing underwear. It prevents dirt tracks, but also women have discharge, and if your period starts, at least you've got that layer of underwear to protect the rest of your clothes, at least that little bit. And it really does work, and it really does matter. A pair of underwear is supposed to be made out of cotton because cotton is breathable, but honestly, well, quite frankly, would you want to sit on crochet stitches? Like, I do not. I wouldn't want to walk on them. I don't want to sit on them. Knitting you can get away with a little bit more, but as most yarns that you knit with are more fickle than the underwear you buy. I mean, this is one where practicality wise, buying underwear makes more sense, in my opinion. And bras. I say this as somebody who has a larger bra size. Most of the people who I find making bra patterns are like a B cup at biggest, and the bras aren't performing a structural task. So let's pull out a bra. This is not meant to be a sexual thing, but let's look at my bra. I know I do the thing that a lot of people don't agree with, which is an underwire. But here's the thing, if you get a properly fitting bra, the underwire is supposed to sit right against your skin, even between your breasts, and it won't dig in if it's sitting properly. However, most women are not wearing properly fitted bras. Anything above a double D is really hard to find in stores, and that's a whole other video I'm probably not going to make about how ridiculous it is finding larger bra sizes. This is a size F cup, by the way. I have larger breasts, and therefore there's a considerable amount of weight in them. So the structure of the bra really matters. And because, as you can see, this bra does not have sewing structure in the cup, it needs that structure under the cup to do the same thing that darts and dart sewing would do for shaping a breast. And if you'll notice, if I pull the way that the weight is going to go, there really isn't much give in a bra. Now each individual layer has quite a bit of stretch, But together, because they stretch in different ways, creates a really firm structure that helps to shape the breast. And unfortunately, the things you can do in knitting and crochet that reduce stretch also make a garment very uncomfortable to wear. Let me show you. First, we have cotton. Now, admittedly, this cotton is knitted in a structure. This is moss stitch, but even this has quite a bit of stretch, no matter how you do it. And you'll notice that the cotton doesn't pull back in. I stretch it and it pretty much stays there until I stretch it the other way. And that is the nature of cotton. It doesn't have memory. It doesn't have pull in. So you can't stretch it and it'll spring back. Wool does that. But most wool is not machine washable, and it loses some of that elasticity if you get a superwash variety. So, and not to mention, cotton is kind of the cool one. There are other plant-based materials like linen, bamboo, and the like that you could also use. But even this one, which is a tighter crochet, this one is crochet, even has stretch and no spring back. And even the things you do to make it more, well, less stretchy, just make it thicker and heavier and less comfortable than if you simply purchased one. Like this is 2 strands of acrylic held together, and let's see, it does stretch a bit more, but let's face it, this, I mean, it's beautiful, but it's not going to be comfortable. And here's the thing, my boobs have weight. Little A cups don't have much to them. They probably at most weigh 2 to 4 pounds. Versus mine probably weigh closer to 15, 20. Because my boobs have weight, anything with a little stretch is going to stretch. And creating that structure with stitches that stretch is very hard. So always my boobs are going to look saggy, which is not a look I really appreciate. So, and not to mention, you know, just finding bras in my size, because most don't go higher than a double or a triple D. I go to Nordstrom's. I have to buy the expensive bras. It is intensely frustrating. But I get a bra that is very comfortable that I can wear for a good long time every day. And I really don't get many marks outside of the standard ones. I don't get like crochet stitch marks all up and down the underside of my boobs, which just doesn't sound good. Not to mention, if you do wool, there is an itch factor for many people. And depending on which fiber you're using, which breed of wool, but even so, it's just, it's making me itch just thinking about it. Not to mention straps. Straps, these are stretchy, but they have a firmness to them that holds, and with the straps, helps to create the structure of the cups. All of this gets lost in my experience with knitting and crochet. And I wouldn't want anything too heavy because remember, I do live in California. I am recording this on a day that is about 100 degrees, and the last few days have been around 110. Some things are just not feasible. Between those two, just big fat note for me. You are welcome to if you want to. But now let's talk about bathing suits, which is a little different. Now, most of the bathing suit patterns I've seen are bikinis, like string bikinis, which I don't wear anyway. First of all, anything with strings has a line of failure in how well you tie your knot or your bow, which if you tie your knot or your bow too well, good luck getting out of. I'm already on a no there, not to mention I don't personally prefer anything so revealing. No judgment to those who are totally okay with it. I saw this, one of the Kardashian women had this unaltered video that everybody, was all up in arms around because it was unedited, and everybody's like, she's fat. She was not fat, by the way. She had a real body and it looked just fine. It was a body and it's functional. And if you ever think about it, most bodies look pretty weird. And hers was no weirder than anybody else's. Definitely no weirder than mine. But the thing that bothered me about it is she was wearing the string bikini where all the strings kind of came around down a few extra times and kind of dug into the skin because that's how it stayed up. And that looked just so uncomfortable. And it's like, I'm happy she's having fun. I'm happy she's comfortable with it. But I'd be pulling on things, trying to get everything like not to dig in. And because I'm squishy, things can dig in quite a lot more on me than they can on somebody who, like this Kardashian, was thin. I have issues with this. Just from a comfort perspective, not an aesthetic perspective. That looked painful, to be honest. So that's not my style, and that's what most bikini are. I also don't like wedgies. They're not comfortable for me, so I don't want the bottom half to be like a G-string or anything that's super uncomfortable because I will be trying to pick it out constantly. Not to mention sitting on knit or crochet stitches, just like because they tend to be thicker. Not to mention getting them wet. Here's the thing with actual bathing suits. They stretch a lot. Here is my bathing suit. And you get a good 3 to 4 inches of stretch pulling on this thing, not even using a ton of muscle. That's because these are technically sized 1 or 2 sizes down from what a person would normally wear, and then they stretch to fit the contours of the body. And because they're typically made out of some kind of latex, let's see if I can find a tag. Hand wash my ass. I'm not gonna hand wash this thing. Yeah, this is 80% nylon or polyamide and 20% spandex, elastic material. And so what this does is they make it a size or 2 smaller than the body it's supposed to go on so that it stretches to fit the contours. And there's a little bit of structuring to make those contours more aesthetically pleasing. That doesn't happen with most fibers. The only one with elasticity of any kind is wool. There is a certain amount that you can get with certain stitch types, and like if you're doing a rib stitch, for example, which intentionally brings things closer, but that works one direction, not another, and that's the joy of spandex. It works in more than one direction. I can stretch it this way, and I can stretch it this way. And although one way stretches easier than the other, it always comes back to shape. And cotton, bamboo, linen, acrylic, polyester, none of these do that. They're all very rigid. They don't naturally stretch. Wool, however, does. But let's talk about the 1920s for a second, because the 1920s had the first commercially available bathing suit for women. And it was basically a top very similar to this, and then it was kind of like bike shorts down to the knee. Very modest, and 100% made of wool. Those suckers were very heavy when they got wet. They weren't the nicest to move around in. And swimming was something you had to really love because the bathing suits were not comfortable. So if you make a bathing suit out of wool, you're going to have a skimpier version of that. Not to mention the weight of the water pulling everything down. And I'm always worried about that, especially with a less covered style is that you're more likely to have something slip out, and even if you're in a group of people where that's okay around, you're probably going to get laughed at because it's a wardrobe malfunction. And I feel uncomfortable with it happening to me. So yeah, practicality wise, underwear, bras, and bathing suits, not something I'm going to be making myself because I do think that the manufactured versions are better. And I really wish that they were made more sustainably. I do wish that women's hosiery were more comfortable, more size available, and more sustainable and lower, more affordable cost. But as it is, it's kind of dealing with what I got and not being super uncomfortable and adjusting things all the time, in my opinion. So if you disagree with me, please do. I'd love to hear why you enjoy these, aside from I enjoy making things, because I will agree with you there. It would be fun to make something of these natures. But why do you actually like wearing them? And if you have good experiences or bad experiences, I'd like to hear from you in the comments. And happy crafting. Bye.